In this video, I'm gonna teach you how to increase your deadlift 100 pounds in 90 days. Now, deadlift is particularly sensitive because it has such a high sympathetic drive. So we're gonna go over the 3 major considerations to be able to hit a new personal best without burning yourself out or getting injured along the way. Grab a pen and paper, let's get to work. So in the first phase, you have to build your work capacity. In strength sports, we don't spend all that much time with high volume work. And the issue is you could walk yourself down a path of decreasing your work capacity so much to the point that all you have is 1 or 2 reps in a deadlift session before all of a sudden you're out of gas and you have nothing left to give. So in this first phase, which should last the first 4 to 5 weeks, the primary focus is on building the general work capacity. Can we do 4 sets of 8, 5 sets of 8 and still have you somewhat fresh? When we do that, it prepares you for the next phases. The most common error is that people believe that more is better. Progressive overload is non-negotiable when it comes to a general strength program, but how you progress is very important because we can't just stack on more weight week after week after week and hope that your deadlift gets to where you want it to. If you did that and it works, you wouldn't be watching this video. So we need to do, of course, some direct deadlift work, but then we also need to do some work on exposing parts of the deadlift that aren't going to be so taxing. Now, during this phase, I don't support anything like a partial pull because that's going to be so much weight and going to take a big toll on the nervous system. When we think about that, we're thinking about the total weight that we're moving and the total effort. That should give you a really good idea. Now, we're going to make the deadlift harder in this phase while we're working under volume with things like snatch grip deadlifts, maybe some deficit deadlifts, maybe some back extensions, maybe some hip thrusts, totally depending on you. But we need to progressively overload in a very particular way so that we respect the nervous system while building the capacity of the muscular system. Now, in this first phase, we are focusing on the muscular system. In the subsequent phases, we're focusing on the nervous system. And this is a really important distinction. When you're focusing on the muscular system, we're working on things like increasing the thickness of the muscle because the cross-sectional area of a muscle is exactly what we're after for the baseline ability to move weight. When we're in this phase, we're not focusing on the neural component to move big weight, meaning that you can't just do this phase and then hop straight in and see what your 1 rep max is. Now, important here, you don't know what your 1 rep max is at any given point in time. And this is why, as a general principle, I don't support using % 1RM as a year-round way to quantify loads for your training. Now, before I move on to phase 2, I have a deadlift peaking program that I use to deadlift 475 kilos. We've linked that down in the description. And this whole video is really an explanation of why that program is structured the way that it is. Now, we've gone over building a base. We're gonna move on to part 2, which is going to be choosing your accessories or exposing your weak points. Now, if it's sticky off of the ground, there's things you can do in terms of accessories and things you can do in terms of technique. Generally speaking, weak off the floor means you should bring your feet in and point them forward. Weak at lockout means that you should bring your feet out, hands out a little bit, and you should try to sit down a little bit more. This is gonna help your shoulders be closer to the bar, hit your hips and your shoulders close together in a vertical plane. That's gonna help you with your lockout. Now, that's the technical element, broad overview. In terms of accessories, the biggest mistake that people make is when you struggle off the ground, your goal should not be to start doing deficit deadlifts. Likewise, if you struggle at lockout, you should not start doing rack pulls. Reason being, this is really intuitive, but if you do a deficit pull, you're actually gonna get yourself in a different position than you would in a standard deadlift. In fact, some people are better from a deficit than they are from standard height because you can coil yourself down more, build a little bit more power down there, and it just doesn't transfer over. Now, when it comes to rack pulls, if you struggle at lockout and you start doing lockouts from the knee up, look at the position that you do a rack pull in and the position you're doing a deadlift in. It's not even close to the same. That carryover will be minimal. Now, I'll give you one accessory, my best accessory off the ground and my best accessory for lockout. When we're talking about lockout, making the ground harder and more strict is gonna keep your lockout in a better spot. Meaning, you need to go to a snatch grip deadlift. This is gonna build strength in the upper back, build integrity of your back. The absolute load is gonna be lower, so you can do this without killing your sympathetic nervous system, and the carryover to your lockout will be dramatic. When it comes to the best accessory for people who struggle off the floor, this might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but it's squatting. Building the leg power and the leg drive off of the floor is going to be hugely helpful. Now, generally speaking, people with longer femurs struggle more at lockout. People with shorter femurs struggle more off of the floor. This is in relation to your particular body. Now, you can figure out how to do this for yourself, we can put a link to an anthropometric chart down below. If you don't want to do the math, just stick to, am I weak off the floor at lockout, generally speaking. Now this is a 10,000 foot overview. We've done much longer videos, transforming a stranger's deadlift, where I go into much more depth. We're gonna plug that down in the description. If you want a little bit more info, check that out. Now we are into phase 3, where we're actually going to hit a PB at the end. Important that you have to structure yourself all the way along, and you can't just decide on a day that you're going to max out. Now, how long this peak lasts depends on a couple of things: on your training age, on your absolute strength, on how close you are to your genetic potential, and your general ability to recover. Now, those 4 things are gonna determine it, but really, we're gonna talk anywhere from 6 to 16 weeks to hit a true peak. 6 for more of a novice, 16 for someone more like myself. Now, how often you could deadlift is highly variable as well, because now we are not training the muscular system like we did in phase 1, we're training the nervous system. We're communicating from our brain to our body, how do we most efficiently use our muscles to pick heavy weight up off the ground? This sounds simple, but it's really quite complicated. For example, when you bend your elbow, you don't communicate, I want to contract my bicep and my brachioradialis. You say, I want to bend my elbow. And your brain figures out what motor unit or what groups of muscles are going to perform that function. If we make that all the way and we communicate that as a deadlift, your ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, your chest, your lats, so many things have to come into line to do that movement efficiently. Now, over the course of that 6 to 16 weeks, you're basically gonna start with low, moderate intensity with moderate volume, and you're gonna build up to increase intensity over time, decrease your rep range over time, where the final 3 or 4 weeks, 3 or 4 sessions are going to be your singles. Now, the thing about deadlifting is, if you wanna deadlift, let's say 500 pounds, you don't have to deadlift 480, 490, 500. In fact, it's better to save some of that sympathetic fatigue and do other movements to high intensity and keep your deadlift at maximum an RPE 9 before you go to hit your final lift. Let's say it's 500 pounds. A reasonable place off of that would be 7 to 10%, somewhere between 450 pounds and 465 pounds. You move that well, and the evidence that you're able to move 500 is there. Let's take a step back and sum this all up. So we have 2 phases. First, we have the building phase. Now in this, we're gonna have this last for 4 to 5 weeks. We're gonna have only 1 deadlift session per week. This is all most people can handle, but we're gonna have 3 lower body sessions per week. In session number 1, you're gonna choose 2 compound exercises. One is going to be a deadlift and the other is going to be a squat. If you'd like to choose small variations off of that, no problem. But you're gonna perform something in the range of 3 by 8. Then you're gonna have a second workout, and this is gonna be an accessory-based workout. You're gonna choose 4 exercises. For each of them, you're gonna go 3 by 12 to 15 reps. On a third day, you're gonna do 4 accessory exercises again, lower body focused, but you're gonna do 3 by 12 to 15 per leg. This is going to be single leg work, and that's gonna comprise your 3 lower body sessions of the week, with one of them being deadlift focused, one of them being double leg focused, one of them being single leg focused. Once we get into the second phase, this is when we peak and build into your 1 rep max. We're gonna have 1 deadlift session per week, and we're going down from 3 to 2 total lower body sessions a week. So you have your deadlift session and you have 1 session otherwise. In this, we're gonna have 2 compound exercises that you can choose. These are gonna start as 5 by 3 in week 1, then 4 by 2 in week 2, and then 3 by 1 in every subsequent week up to your max. We're also gonna have an accessory related session, and this is going to be 2 exercises, and you're gonna do 6 by 5 total. So 3 by 5 for each of these accessory exercises. These are gonna be performed on a separate day, and in a perfect world, they are not actually loaded, but they will be double leg. So not actually loaded as in not weight through the shoulders. It's too much for the nervous system to handle for most people to do that twice a week at a very high intensity. Things like yokes are absolute no-goes. Good options are, say, something like a leg press, where we are just using our legs to push the weight away. You could also do some exercises that challenge your legs without actually loading too much, like a zombie squat, like a front squat, like a Zercher squat, to build the strength of your legs and posterior chain without that huge load through your shoulders. Remember, sympathetic drive and sympathetic fatigue is going to be largely related to the absolute weight that you're moving. So if there's anything that you could do to lower the weight slightly by increasing the nature of the movement to make it more challenging, that's going to be very useful for you. Follow this advice. That should be able to get you to a new 1 rep max and hopefully put 100 pounds on your deadlift in 12 weeks. Of course, that is incredibly based on individual variation. An experienced person, probably not. A novice person, for sure. Take it for what it is. It will help you if you follow these principles. Now, I give you a broad overview. Again, check the link in the description if you want to see the full deadlift program that I use to deadlift 475 kilos, putting all of these principles into action. In that program, we also have upper body exercises as well. It is really a full body strength program that prioritizes deadlift over everything else. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you would like to support the channel, merch link is in the description. You should see the YouTube shop there as well. As per usual, lift heavy, be kind, leave a comment, turn on the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you in the next video.